Hey everyone, this is Mended by the Maker, where we heal at the root. I'm your host, Jenna Duncan. Now, let's dig deep, have honest conversations, and create space for true holistic healing. So, today we're going to talk about the M in the acronym MEND. The M stands for making a decision. Healing requires you to make an intentional decision. You cannot heal by just wanting to, by just wishing to, by just desiring to. You have to decide to heal. It's like a life and death situation with healing. You make the decision, it has to be intentional, and you have to know what you are getting into. When we make decisions, when we're making a decision, we're saying yes to something and no to something else. If you are deciding to heal, then you're saying no to chaos. If you are deciding to heal, then you're saying no to being lackadaisic. When you're saying yes to healing, you're making that decision to heal. You are turning away from the things that have destroyed you in time past. That is going to look different for everyone, but it is very, very important that you choose, that you are intentional, that when you say, I am deciding, that you really, truly have decided. So I'm going to give you a few scriptures that I use personally to help in my decision to healing. The first one we're going to look at is Matthew 7, verse 7. The word of God says that we ought to ask and it shall be given unto us. Now that means ask for anything. I think when we are on our journey of healing, especially for us as Christian women or men, we sometimes are afraid to really ask God for what we want. We ask him for things that we can actually control. But the reality is you are not in control of anything, if I'm being honest with you. You think that you're in control, and so it's easy to ask for things that you feel like you're in control of, but the things that we can't control, we don't really go to God. God desires that we come to him for every single thing. He's like a father, and I know it's really hard for some of us to relate to a father that actually protected us, a father that actually loved us, a father that was actually there for us. But I believe that God himself desires to restore that relationship, that father and child relationship, the genuine father and child relationship. And so he desires that we come to him and ask him for the things that we need. So when we are making that decision, we go to God and we say, you know what, Lord, I no longer want to be X, and I am making a decision from this day forward to walk in this direction. Now, does that mean that you're going to stay linear and walk in that direction? Absolutely not. You may fall back. There are so many different things that may come into your path. There may be times where you're like, you know what, I give up. I don't want to do this anymore. But because you've invited God into your decision that you've made, now you actually have a partner, you have help. So you're not doing it on your own. So ask him for what you want. You want help making the decision? Ask him for help making the decision. You want the decision to look like A? Ask him to help you so that decision can look like A. Right? So the first thing we're doing is we're asking God for help, and that again can be found in Matthew 7, verse 7. The second thing I want us to look at is James 1, 6 and 7, and that's basically telling us that we ought to ask in faith. And I know it's going to be very challenging for some of us to have faith and trust God. I mean, look at your experience, right? Look at what you've been through. How could you have faith and trust in a God that could, quote unquote, allow something like that to happen? But the Bible also tells us that every man is given a measure of faith. We each have a measure of faith. So when the Bible is telling us to ask with faith, ask with all the faith that you have. If you have a little bit of faith, then that's the faith that you ask with. God is not expecting you to ask with, Noah-sized faith when you're going through a Job, persecution and you don't even know him. He's not going to ask for that. He's asking you to use the faith that you have. Even if it's borrowed faith, even If it's faith that you literally are just reading the Bible, and only when you read the Bible, that's the time you have faith, then use that. That is what he wants from you. So ask in faith. The next thing we're going to look at is Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. Again, kind of going back on what I just said, a lot of us don't trust God. We say we trust God, but we don't. I mean, how can you? If our relationship is supposed to be with God as a father-daughter or father-son relationship, and we were destroyed, for lack of better words, by the people that were supposed to protect us, by our parents, how do we then now look at God and just automatically trust him? It doesn't work like that. So I want you to put that side apart, because I'm going to address it not later in this video, but later in a different video about trusting God and what that actually looks like. But the part that I really want you to focus on is acknowledging him in all your ways, inviting God into whatever decision that you're making, and being open and honest with him. You know what, Lord? I don't trust you. I want to trust you. Help me to learn to trust you. I want to heal. I want to be better. And understanding that God's healing doesn't work like human healing. In that it's not a band-aid. It's not a band-aid. He doesn't give you a band-aid. So in my profession, I work in the emergency department, and a lot of times, the majority of the times, people come into the emergency department inappropriately, meaning somebody has a chronic issue, right? And instead of going to their family doctor, they come into the emergency department. Now, when they're in the emergency department, the expectation is that we're supposed to fix them, but we can't, because emergency is not made for that. So what do? We give them a Band-Aid. We give them a Tylenol, we give them an Advil, we load them up with antibiotics and send them on their way. Now, does that fix the problem? No, it just deals with the symptoms. So when we acknowledge God in all our ways, what we are actually saying to God is, Lord, I know that this healing that you have for me is not going to look like any other healing that I'm expecting, right? If you remember from the intro video where I shared with you my own personal experience about healing, I honestly thought that God was just going to heal the cancer. But that wasn't it. Like, he wanted to go deep at the root to help me to understand where the symptoms of the cancer even came from. So we're going to acknowledge God in all our ways. The next thing is Proverbs 19:20 encourages us to get counsel and to get instruction. You cannot heal in a vacuum, friend. You can't. You're going to need people to help and support you. You're going into a new version of yourself, or a new way of life that you have never experienced before. And just like I did not just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to be a nurse today. I promise you that didn't happen. It took years of going to school. And then even after I was finished school, I still had to do some on-the-job learning. Even till today, after nursing for double-digit years, I'm still learning on the job. You must seek counsel, and wise counsel, right? So that's what this is encouraging us to do. The next thing we're going to look at is James 1:22, and this tells us that we need to do what we've learned. Not just that you're learning the things, you actually have to put it into action. Is it going to be challenging? 100%. It's going to be difficult, but you still need to put it into action. It is your responsibility. God is going to do his part, but your part is to actually do the work. Then the last thing we're going to look at is 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 18. And this says that we ought to thank God for everything. Now, I know this is very challenging for some people, because how do you thank God that you were raped? How do you thank God that you were molested? How do you thank God that you've been abused? I'm not asking you or encouraging you to thank God for those things. I'm asking you to thank him that he's allowing it to make you into a better person, that he has allowed it and it hasn't just completely destroyed you, as in you're not dead. If you're alive and you were actually listening, there's still hope, because you didn't have to listen this far. You didn't even have to click on this, but there's something in you that desires healing. And that tells me that God is still working on you. He's still working this thing out in you. So we're going to thank him. We're going to thank him that He hasn't given up on us. Okay? And we're also going to be addressing what it looks like when someone has been abused and it's a challenge for them to reconcile how God can make that happen. Now, I'm just going to again go over all the steps. All of the Bible references will be in the show notes. But again, we're asking for what we want. We're asking in faith, no matter how little that faith is. We're trusting God and acknowledging Him in all of the things that we're going to do, embarking on this journey, even asking Him for direction. We are getting counsel and instruction. Once we've received that counsel and instruction, we're actually going to put in the work. Is it going to be easy? No, but we have to put in the work. And then we're going to thank God. We're going to continue to thank God. So I pray that this message has been a blessing to you. And as Christ asked me, I am asking you, wilt thou be made whole?